Hey y'all, it's Chris. Now today on the podcast, my guest is Carey Bringle. Now Carey is most famously known as the head and face of Peg Leg Porker, the barbecue and bourbon empire based right here in Nashville, Tennessee. In this episode, Carey and I talk about his journey as an entrepreneur, how he got started in his very first business, Carey B's Custom Teas, as a teenager. We talk about the challenges of operating a family business, his advice for people who are looking to start their own business, and we even talk about building a legacy and how important that is to Carey. Now, I'll go ahead and warn you, Carey is a character. He's one of a kind, and there is a little bit of salty language on the front end of this episode. So if you got kids, put them earmuffs on, all right? Here it is, my conversation with Carey Bringle.
All right.
The Honorable Carey Bringle.
Shit. A little frazzled today. I've had quite the fucking morning.
It's a family show, Carey.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Can I get one of those
Absolutely,
water? Yeah.
man.
Thank you.
Sorry, I moved it out of your way there.
All right.
So I've been seeing your name everywhere. I feel like I see it every other day. Something pops up in my feed. Carey Bringle, Microsoft article.
Yeah.
Best barbecue in Tennessee. Best bourbon in the world.
Yes.
Entrepreneur to watch.
Yes.
And so I thought it'd be fun just to kind of get you in here. Last time we visited, it was 2020. I don't remember what time of year. You had stirred up a little bit of a hornet's nest.
Always.
With the mares. That's kind of what
Always,
you do.
Yeah. That's what I do.
But a lot has changed since then. And I'm just curious, like, man, seeing how you've grown this brand, I was just like, man, I'd love to sit and chat with him a little bit about this. Like, from my perspective, when I think of Peg Leg Porker, the brand, I mean, obviously you're in the restaurant business.
Right.
You've got a bourbon brand.
Yes.
Multiple lines of merch. You're shipping out barbecue and sauces and rubs all over the country. Yep. Was there a moment were you entrepreneurial before you launched the Peg Leg Porker brand?
Oh, yeah. I started my first company probably when I was 15 or 16, something like that.
What was that business?
I had a T-shirt company. So I saw all these kids wearing these tie-dyes.
Yeah.
And I hated them. Couldn't stand them. I called them punk liberals that would wear those tie-dyes. But you know, what I also saw was an opportunity.
Yeah.
And so although I didn't like tie-dyes and I didn't want to wear tie-dyes, I knew I could learn how to make tie-dyes. And so I talked to a girl of mine that went to high school with, that I grew up with, and I said, yeah, what's the deal? How do you do these? And she said, you go buy this dye and you fold them up, tie them up like this, and you do them like that. And I started making them, and then I started researching, and I found better dyes. I found fiber reactive dyes that were much stronger, that weren't going to fade, and I could make better colors. And I started making those and tying them up, and I'd just make them in the kitchen. And then I'd go to school, and I'd throw about 8 of them over my shoulder, and I'd walk down the hallway, and I'd sell them. And I'd make a big profit on each one of them, and so I really loved it. And I had a company that was called Carey B's Custom Teas, and
I love it.
So I did that for a while. They got popular, and then actually I got approached by an adult that was like, "Hey, I love those," and I was making matching tie-dyes and 100% cotton boxers, and the girls all wanted those for nightwear.
Yeah.
And so Castner Knott, the local retailer, department store, picked them up and put them in the women's department. And then from there, I changed the name of my company to Graphically Speaking, and did T-shirts in college. I worked for a buddy of mine, Robbie Lunday, who actually just was in town this week. He's still down at Auburn at Master Graphics. And I started my own company, but I would sub out all my screen printing work to him. And I did that. And then when I left Auburn, I went up to Tennessee Tech, and they had shitty T-shirts and all crappy designs. I saw all the fraternities and sororities walking around with these crappy design T-shirts, and I was like, I got artists that can do much better than that. And I started selling them up there, and that's how I paid my way through college. And I've had companies ever since. Whether I worked in corporate America, to have a more stable and bigger job and support my family, or whether I didn't, I always had a company. And so I've started multiple companies, and some of them were great, and some of them weren't. I had some good partners, and I had some really crappy partners. And, you know, I was one of the first mail-order gourmet food and meat companies on the internet in 1995 with Prestige Beef and Gourmet Foods. And, you know, it just kind of dominoed from there.
Did you think, you know, starting, it was Carey B's, what was it called?
Custom Teas.
That's right. Like what, you know, how many different total businesses have you ever been involved in? And I'm curious, like, starting from that very first one as a 14, 15-year-old, what made you decide, okay, the time on this project has come to an end.
Yeah.
What did I learn from that? What's my next thing? Like, it seems like you've evolved to where today you're all in on peg leg porker. Like, that's the thing that you are known for. How many total projects have you ever worked on?
You know, 6 to 8.
Yeah.
Maybe different companies that I've started or helped start.
Were some of them just complete failures? It just did not work out?
Well, like say that, you know, the T-shirt company was great for while I was in college, and even after I got out of college, I had a fraternity brother work for me and continue selling shirts, and I just took an override off of it. And I did that until it just kind of got to be a pain. I went into healthcare after school. I was in the clinical lab business, and then from there I went into technology. But you know, when I was doing healthcare, I left it to start this mail order gourmet meat company.
Yeah.
It was doing okay, and I think it could have been a huge success. But I was in business with a close friend of mine and his family, and I was the non-family member and was the minority owner because my ownership was just from sweat equity, and the father didn't have the stomach for it, and he shut us down. And it wasn't anything we did. It wasn't any major failure. It just wasn't doing what he expected it or wanted it to do, and so he shut us down, and that was a big blow. And I learned a big lesson from that. And then I worked in healthcare, helped a healthcare startup, started a new lab. I was in the clinical lab business and started that with a couple other people, and it was a conglomerate of 11 hospitals that had put this group together, put this lab together, and I was running sales department for that and helping it start up. And you know, all of a sudden E&Y came in and told one of the big hospitals, you need to cut all your stuff that you're doing and just concentrate on your core business, and they shut it down. And so nothing that we did wrong, they just shut it down. And then, you know, I had another healthcare company that I started with a partner, and that was very successful, and we were doing extremely well nights and weekends. You know, he and I had different, I guess, moral philosophies on business. And so I won't go down that road, but I felt the need to get out of business with that particular partner.
Yeah.
And I sold out my part to them, and you know, they've continued on with it. It's a very successful healthcare company, but I didn't see eye to eye with. We didn't have the same ethics of business.
How long ago was the healthcare technology experience?
Well, after I was in technology when I was doing that healthcare company, and then I sold out of that healthcare company and stayed in technology for another couple of years, and then left the big corporation I was with, decided I wanted to do the restaurant and work on my brand, and so I consulted for 2 years in technology consulting. And I did that, and that was great, and it paid the bills, and it gave me the flexibility to work when I wanted and when I didn't, and it allowed me to build out the Peg Leg Porker restaurant. And Peg Leg Porker, you have to understand, I had started the brand 15 years prior.
Yeah. You were shipping products, right?
I was selling dry seasoning and barbecue sauce, and I had a barbecue team that was competing down at Memphis in May. And so, I had been hawking the brand.
Yeah.
I just didn't have a brick and mortar.
Yeah.
And so the way that I built Peg Leg Porker, which is different than most restaurateurs, is it's sort of a hub and spoke model. And so at the center of the hub is intellectual property and the brand of Peg Leg Porker. Mm-hmm. The restaurant is one aspect of it. So it's one spoke off of that wheel. And then we have a clothing company, and then we have a spirits company, and then we have a food, wholesale, and retail products company, and then we have real estate holding companies. But they're all based off of that center hub of the Peg Leg Porker lifestyle brand. And that's where I think that I approached it very different than most of my peers in the restaurant business. They started restaurants, were successful, and then thought, well, what can I do from here?
Yeah.
I started with the mindset of this restaurant is one aspect of the brand. Yeah. We only ever want to have one restaurant that's called Peg Leg Porker, but we could sell products and services or what all over the globe. But we want the restaurant to be the physical manifestation and the iconic place that's our rock.
That's the pilgrimage, man. When people get engaged with the brand, ultimately, you want them to end up there. You want them to buy a rack of ribs or whatever.
100%.
Man, do you feel like I know I have felt this for sure. Have you ever made a mistake in business that you felt like this could be fatal for the brand? Something that...
Oh, sure.
I'd love to hear... Describe one of those for us. I'd love to hear, how you overcame that. What your thought process was throughout that?
Well, I can tell you that first of all, the reason that I'm successful with Peg Leg Porker is because of the many mistakes that I've made in business.
Amen.
And so we wouldn't be successful now had I not had businesses that failed or that were mistakes or bad business partners. All of those led up to...
You learn something from each of those, right?
If you don't, then you're doing it wrong. So if you talk to any successful entrepreneur, they're going to tell you about the scars that they've got in order to get to be successful. And certainly that's happened with Peg Leg Porker. I've been very outspoken. I was very outspoken with the mayor, with the city, and I thought, and I got some pushback. I got 95% positive feedback, but that 5% that didn't like what I had to say, even though it was a very bipartisan issue.
Yeah.
I will tell you, I got attacked by the left massively. And I mean publicly. And they were loud and vocal and tried to call me a liar and say I wasn't being truthful and I was a greedy capitalist employer that probably treated his employees like garbage and didn't want to pay my fair share. And that was not my point. One, I'm a good business owner. I think you could talk to any of my employees and they would tell you that. And I care about them. And we're 100% family owned and operated. And we have a lot of families that work for us. But two, my taxes went up 800% in an 8-year period. There wasn't any Carey needs to pay his fair share. And I dumped multiple millions of dollars into that neighborhood, which had not been developed prior to that, and created, 50 new jobs. Yeah. And I pay a lot of taxes. And so, I will be 100% honest on how I feel about taxes. There's about 10 pages of the tax code on what taxes you're supposed to pay. There's about 2,000 or 25,000 or 50,000 pages to tell you how you can avoid paying those and create jobs and do whatever. The federal government wants you to spend money. They want you to create economic development. And so I'll pay as little taxes as I possibly can.
Amen.
I'm 100% honest about that.
I like to say avoid, but don't evade.
That's right.
Those are two different things.
Yeah, tax avoidance and following the law and doing, building out a building and using a cost segregation study or whatever to lower my tax bill 100%. And what I'm doing when I do that is I'm pumping money into the economy and I'm creating jobs and I'm creating opportunities for other people. So I don't buy the argument when I get attacked that he doesn't want to pay his fair share.
Yeah.
That's a that is one of the stupidest arguments ever invent. Who, and I tell people, if you think, that you want to pay more money to the federal government because they're not taxing you enough, there is a law that allows you to do that. You can put extra money in that envelope.
Yeah.
But somehow they never do. They just want to say you don't want to pay your fair share. So I'm very vocal about that. But when I was getting attacked and, somebody said, oh, there's a Reddit thread on you. And I tell you what, man, I sat down one afternoon and I read all 400 posts.
You can't go to Reddit, Carey.
And I'm going to tell you what, my buddy told me, he said, don't do that. Well, of course I had to. And it's depressing.
Oh,
it'll bring you down.
Yeah.
But you have to overlook it and go, hey, who are these people? Most of them have never set foot in my restaurant. Most of them don't know me from Adam. And, my wife really got after me. And she's like, you need to stop it with the politics or with the opinions, And I said, I get you. And I watched a buddy of mine get brutally attacked over it with his small family-owned business. And it was uncomfortable to see, and certainly would make any small business owner uncomfortable. And that cancel culture is a shame. Yeah. No matter what side of the aisle it's coming from, it's a shame because we ought to be able to say what's on our mind and not be persecuted for it. That's what freedom of speech is all about.
Was your reaction to that when you saw the way people treated you, did that push you? I've always thought of you as like a middle of the road type guy, man of the people. Did that push you in one direction or another?
Not particularly. I've always been a fairly conservative guy, more of a libertarian.
Yeah.
I will have a discussion with anybody and happy to have a civil conversation. What upsets me is when people get so embedded in their opinion that they're just not willing to listen to anybody else, or they throw reason out the window, and just abandon it for what they think is, correct or what they think is right. I went to dinner with a friend 2 nights ago that we've been friends for a long time. He is almost diametrically opposed to most of my political views.
Yeah.
We talked about it briefly. We had a few discussions, but we were able to have civil conversations. And, at the end of it, we just able to go, man, I enjoyed spending time with you and being with you. And we'll probably do some business together. But, hey, you know what? We disagree. And that's okay.
Yeah.
It's not the end of the world. I don't have to not do business with him because he has a very different political view than me.
Yeah, I agree.
You
mentioned being 100% family owned. By the way, we have something in common. We're both married to our high school sweethearts.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. I just, I love that woman. And I know you love yours.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that a challenge sometimes, having your wife and your children involved in the business? Have you ever
challenge today? Yes.
Like how do you navigate? How do you navigate having your closest humans or the people you love dearest involved in helping grow this brand and run it?
It's very tough, and it's not just tough on me; it's tough on them.
Yeah.
So the pressure that I've got 2 boys and that are my oldest, and I've got my youngest is a girl. And, the pressure on them is tremendous sometimes. I think the shadow can be daunting.
Yeah.
And the expectation of people. And I've always told my kids, I said, look, this is my dream. It doesn't have to be yours. If you don't want to do this, then, hey, you're not hurting my feelings. I'm not. This is what I wanted to do, but it doesn't have to be what you want to do. And I've had my oldest who's been in and out of my business multiple times. I've fired children. I've fired all 3 of my children multiple times. And then my middle son, he wanted to weld, and he's welding, and I've helped him start a welding company. And my daughter, who said she never wanted to be back in the business, came back and worked last summer and in my back kitchen and loved it. And she's going to come back and work in my business. And so you just never know, but it's difficult. My wife will tell you I fired her. I didn't fire her. She just didn't want to listen to what I had to tell her. And, you know, and I had a business to run. And so my wife is not involved on a daily basis in the business, but I say that. But when you're married to somebody, especially as long as I have been and you have been, they have a tremendous influence on your business.
Amen. Yeah.
Whether they're working in the business every day or not, and whether they understand it or not, their influence on the business is tremendous. And you can't help. That's the person you're laying down with at night that you're going to be talking about your issues and your problems, and you're going to be looking for their feedback. And you may not always like it, and you may not always take their advice, but you're going to take it to heart because it's your family and it's your wife and it's the person that you love. And they do have a significant influence on what we do and how we perform in business.
As you talk about the hub and spoke model.
Yeah.
And, one of the things you've launched over probably the most recent is the bourbon brand, right? I mean, you had clothing before, you had the food products.
Now, the bourbon has been around for 10 years, but it's now, we just finished a blending and bottling facility to take that under our own control. We've been co-packing, yeah, I mean, I love the spirits company.
Yeah. Back in 2020, I think you guys were in about 8 states. You were starting to move internationally.
Yep. Now we're in 11 and in the UK.
Okay.
And we'll expand to probably 4 more this year, and then probably another 5 to 10 next year.
So that's, you think in terms of like slower growth with that?
I have. I've watched a lot of brands blow it up quick, flip it, and get out. And that can be frustrating for somebody. I mean, I always said turtle wins the race.
Yeah.
And I still believe that. We've built a brand, and we've laid down enough product to where we've got 4 years out of inventory. And that's very capital intensive. It takes a long time.
Oh, I can imagine.
But a lot of these newer brands have burst on the scene. They have bought, bottled, flip, top line, kind of hand to mouth. But then they've gotten to the case volume to where they've gotten noticed, and somebody swooped in and
snatched them up
before they ever really made any money or ever really established themselves. And, hey, good for those guys. But I'm old school. You see these internet companies and you watch these people and they're like, we've lost this much this year, lost this much this year, this much this year. And they do that for years and years and years, betting on the volume like an Amazon.
Yeah.
And hoping to get acquired or go public or whatever. I'm old. And so I was taught that if your business isn't profitable,
shouldn't be in business. It's not a business.
You're going to go out of business. And so every business that I've built, we've bootstrapped. We've had to make a profit, or we shut it down. Yeah. Or we go out of business, And so for me, the liquor company's the same way. If I couldn't be profitable and make it work, same with any of the restaurants, clothing, food products, then I need to shut it down or do something else with it. So with that in mind, that's why I built the liquor brand slowly. It takes so much money that most of the liquor companies around here, around Middle Tennessee, most of them got investor money, or they had money. They had made money from another company and built out a distillery, a small one with a tasting room and bottle shop. And most of them, that's all they're ever going to be. There'll be a tasting room and bottle shop, and they'll produce enough for that audience and maybe for Tennessee or for Middle Tennessee. But they won't ever be a national brand or won't ever go do that. And it's good business. A lot of them do extremely well doing that. My goal was always to be a national and international brand. And so I went a very opposite route. We didn't build a tasting room. We didn't build a distillery. We bought juice. that was already aged. We focused on building the brand and on how we finished it, which is a hickory charcoal filtering process that I developed, and establishing our brand and our name out there for everybody to know.
Creating that demand, I guess.
We wanted to create the demand and then lay down a supply while we created demand with other people's supply that we bought. And then once we were forced to build our own blending and bottling facility, we did it. Now we need that control. We've got a big enough audience. We have enough states.
Yeah.
And then the next step will be, well, when we have enough demand, we'll build our own distillery. And so that's our next step after this tasting room comes open with our blending and bottling facility. Then we'll look to build a distillery. But we won't be building a distillery that puts out 1 or 2 barrels a day. We'll build a distillery that's going to put out 60 to 160 barrels. To
keep up with the demand that you've built over the years, over the 10,
absolutely.
12, 15 years of growing that brand.
Yeah, so we went an alternate route than most of my competitors, but because I built it slow like that, I self-funded.
Yeah.
Me and the bank, I owe a lot of money, but I don't owe it to any partners.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that's what works for me. Different models work for different people. And so I'm not, when I say these other people have built these different style distilleries, that's not a criticism.
Sure.
Those are good businesses and they do well and they put out great product. It's just a very different way of building the business and an eye on maybe a different lifestyle or a different long-term brand.
Yeah. So that being one of the spokes on your hub, I mean, I would think you're thinking about other spokes in the future. How do you evaluate new ideas? Do you have people you talk to about that? Counsel you seek?
I do. So, I mean, I've got so many ideas in my head that you have to pare them down and you have to say, well, okay,
because they're not all good.
No,
right?
They're not all good, and they can be a bit heavy distraction for you. And you have to say, well, am I neglecting my bread and butter for something that's a folly that I just want to do? You know, I watch people do it. I've watched people do it in the barbecue business that make tons of money in quick service and fast casual. And then all of a sudden they go, well, I want the prestige of opening up like a steakhouse. And then they go and they lose their ass, you know, because it's a different business model. And it's a totally different profitability and model, and it's just much harder to do. So what I've done in the last 2 years is I joined a CEO group, a CEO peer group, and I really like it because I go once a month and I have peers that are in different industries that are all facing similar problems that I am, and we can speak freely about it. It's 100% confidential, and I get unbiased, unvarnished opinions.
Yeah.
And the stuff that I can't talk to my employees about, or that I may not want to talk to my wife or family about, I can talk to another business owner about and have them go, well, I had a similar experience, and here's what I did, and here's what worked, or here's what didn't work. And so,
are these people all in Nashville, or are they scattered?
These are mostly in Nashville, all in Middle Tennessee, mostly in Nashville. It's part of a larger organization that's got chapters nationally. Gotcha. And then I just joined EO, which is a national and international organization.
Oh, yeah.
But Nashville is their biggest chapter. And it has similar things. It's called Forum, which are similar groups that do a same thing. And
that's at the Entrepreneur Center, right? Sam Davidson, that group. Yeah.
Yep. And so Entrepreneur Center with Sam is their own group, but EO is in that same building.
Gotcha.
Anyway, I find them both very invaluable. For me, being around people that are more successful than me really helps me out in looking to see where I want to go and picking their brain on what's worked and what hadn't worked for them or for their organization. And so I think as an entrepreneur, if you truly want to grow your business, then you have to constantly be looking to innovate and to learn and to be willing to admit when you're wrong and be able to take plenty of criticism and critique.
How did you get involved with this group? How did you discover them?
I had my sister said she had somebody and he was looking for people, and did I know anybody? And I said, yeah, I do. Me. And I said, so I met him, and he was the CEO of 3 very large, Silicon Valley firms, but lives here in Nashville now. And we had lunch and hit it off, and then I went and visited the group, and I hit it off with the rest of the members of the group, and now we have a very close-knit group.
Man, you've been doing that for a couple of years now?
I've been doing it. This is my, I think, I've been doing it for 2 years now.
Yeah.
And it's really invaluable to me. I really value the opinions in that group.
Do you consider yourself a leader of people? Do you find that difficult to do?
I don't find it difficult to do now. Yes, I do consider myself. I mean, I have to be a leader. If you own your own business and you got any employees, you better be a leader.
Yeah,
You're going to fail. I am. I like it. It's, as you know, being an entrepreneur and being a leader can sometimes be the loneliest thing in the world. But I've mentored a lot of people in and out of the restaurant business, and I really enjoy that. And I appreciate when people come to me and say, I value your opinion and what you've built, and do you have a minute to sit down and talk to me? I got one this morning. And it's a business that I know, that I've met the owner, and he, he's just having some struggles and wants to talk about some things, or how he might, overcome some obstacles. And my advice is not always going to be right, but I'm happy to listen and give advice and tell him what I think. And I'm pretty straightforward and honest. I mean, what you see from Carey Bringle is what you're going to get. And so, and I was lucky enough to have people do that with me. And so that's, I'm just trying to give back to what people have given to me. Before I ever started the restaurant, I had several friends in the restaurant business that I'd met. One of them right across the street over here was Jason McConnell. Yeah. And
Jason's a good guy.
He's a great guy. And, I sat down with him and showed him my business plan and told him what I wanted to do. And he gave me the name of an accountant. And he looked at my stuff and said, man, it looks like you're on the right track. You've done the research. And I spent 2 years researching and doing homework and building spreadsheets and
planning for that restaurant.
Planning for everything. You can't plan too much. And it was invaluable to have his input, as long as other restaurateurs and leaders here in town. And Pat Martin and I were friends, and Pat had been in the restaurant barbecue business. We had been friends before he ever started a restaurant. I watched him start his restaurant, and so it was invaluable being able to watch and see what worked for him and what didn't. And I had a lot of buddies that were in the business, and Donald Link down in New Orleans with all of his restaurants, and to get that feedback was great, and that is very helpful. So I try and do that now as much as I can if people come to me.
Yeah.
So
I would think that was one of my notes. My assumption is that more and more people are coming to you as they see the brand grow and succeed. Do you find that the people who are coming to you are mostly wanting to be involved in kind of that traditional hospitality world of restaurants, bars, hotels, or do you get some curveballs from time to time? Like, well, I wouldn't imagine somebody trying to create this would come to me, but they did.
Yeah, sometimes you get that, and I get that some in like my peer group. There's very different businesses in there, and so any advice that I give in there is for a different industry, or any advice I get is from a different industry.
Yeah.
All CEOs have the similar problems, and all growing companies have similar growing pains. So we're not that different. We're just in different industries.
Yeah.
And sometimes hospitality gets discounted because people think, oh, it's a restaurant. Oh, bless their heart. Look at that. They got a cute little barbecue restaurant, And I say, well, That's cool. I don't care if you think that way. I sit at the end of my bar in a uniform shirt, and a lot of times people come up to me and they'll say, "You in construction or are you a mechanic?" And I say,
I actually own this daggone place.
No, I don't. Usually I don't. I just let them figure it out, and but I'm tickled by that. My mind on the prize is that I'm going to build $100-200 million company. And so, when I say that, sometimes people look at me like I'm crazy and think, well, you just own a barbecue restaurant.
Yeah.
And I think, no, I own a lifestyle brand that's internationally known, and I've worked hard to do that. And our spirits company is now internationally known, and it's growing at a large clip. And so I can do that. If I can imagine it, I can do it. And I had this conversation this morning with one of my children, and I said, what do you want to do? And he said, well, I got things that, I want. And I said, what's the most, if you could think of anything,
dream it
up.
What
would it be? Dream it up. Yeah. What would it be? Well, those are just fantasies. And I said, well, they will be as long as you keep thinking of them that way. I said, do you ever think that I thought that we would win best barbecue in the state of Tennessee? My family's all from West Tennessee. I never thought anybody in Nashville would win that, let alone me. And I said, did you ever think that we would win best bourbon in the world, let alone have a bourbon brand of our own? No. Well, I didn't think that either until I started thinking that I could do that.
Yeah.
And when I started thinking that I could do that, and I wrote it down, and then I started thinking of what is the path to do that, and started walking on that path and pursuing that, then it became a reality. But if I think I'll never do that, I probably never will.
Yeah.
Can't, never, could.
Oh, amen. We got a fun sticker that says that somewhere around here.
I've got one as well. My daddy used to say that growing up.
Yeah, I love it. When those people come to you now, are they asking for advice about something they're already doing? Does somebody ever come to you and they just say, I have an idea.
Sure.
It's not even in existence right now. It just lives in my brain. And when they come to you like that, and I know each one's going to be specific, but are there one or two or three things that you go, if you're going to start something from scratch, doesn't exist except in your brain, these are the main things I would share with anyone. You got to be able to what?
Solve a problem. So I would say, from a product standpoint, I would say solve a problem. People say, and the restaurateurs that come to me, they say, well, what's your best piece of advice? And I say, I'll tell you what I tell everybody. You want to live with the classes, you feed the masses. Mm-hmm. If you want to live with the masses, you feed the classes. You can have the fanciest high-end restaurant in the world all day long. You may not make a dime. You may get all the prestigious awards. You may get all the accolades. You may get all the write-ups, and you may be out of business in 6 months. I have watched it happen multiple times with James Beard Award-winning chefs that were out of business before they even accepted their award. But, it's the same business principles apply to all these businesses. But I would say with like a product or a service, are you solving a problem? Because you can come up with what you think is the greatest thing in the world, but if it's not a product that anybody has to have, then are they really going to buy it? It just very few circumstances. And, I'm an avid Shark Tank watcher.
Us too. We love it.
I'm like Mr. Wonderful. Go take that out behind the barn and shoot it. And I'll be frank with people and say, look, man, it's time for you to cut your losses. This was a bad idea. And it's okay. We all make mistakes. Mm-hmm. But cut and run while you can before it costs you more. And really, more of your time is more important.
Yeah.
And it's a painful lesson. When I walked away from a business partner, I walked away from a lot of money. But I walked away with a clean conscience that I felt good about. And that peace of mind is worth more than any money that you will ever make.
Yeah. You're in a business that I think most people think of as a traditional hospitality business.
Sure.
Do you ever think about Southern hospitality? Do you feel like, I know people all over the world do hospitality well. They embrace it as a way of life. But do you think there's something unique and special and different about Southern hospitality?
Well, I do. I mean, because I grew up in the South,
Yeah.
and I feel like we do it better than anybody else. But I've had some great experiences up north.
Absolutely.
I've had tremendous experiences overseas. I think our approach is just sometimes a little different. It's a little slower and a little more take your time, and a little more, let me get to know you. And
Intentional, maybe.
intentional. It's more of I want you to feel like family. And, that's what I tell our employees at Peg Leg is, hey, this is not just about great food. This is about a customer experience. Anybody can serve great food. And, people, they say, well, with the one thing, it's all about the food, right? And I go, well, not really. I go, people are paying money for your food. They expect it to be good. That's a given. If it's not good, they're just not going to come back.
Yeah.
So that's one that you can just sort of push aside, because if you can't do that, then you're just losing on the front end. But it's about an experience, and it's about the way that person feels when they walk in and when they walk out. And, for our business, that's what we try and do. And a lot of businesses do that well. A lot of them do it poorly. But I want, in my restaurant in the Gulch at Peg Leg, all the photographs are all family photos. They're all my people, and or they're close friends, or they're events that we did with our buddies or my peers in the industry. But they're all personal. I can tell you everything about every picture that's hanging up in my place. None of them are, something that's just there as a decoration.
Yeah.
And, I wanted a very different feel and look than most of the barbecue places had in Nashville, because my family's from West Tennessee. And so most of the Nashville barbecue restaurants, and even like country cooking restaurants, were all like barnwood and tin and country music and that type of thing. And that's great. I've been to a ton of them that are dynamite. My experience growing up to barbecue places was cinder block, concrete, smoky atmosphere, no windows, counter service, and blues and soul. And so when I built out Peg Leg Porker, that was the feel that I was wanting, and that's what we found in 903 Gleave Street. It was the old Shannon Electric building.
Yeah.
And when I saw the building and saw no windows and cinder block, I thought, this is what I'm looking for. Just the bare bones.
Yeah.
And to me, that feels like what I grew up with. For other people, they've built what it felt like for them to grow up, and that works for them. And that, and so I'm able to make people feel like part of my family walking in what we designed. And other good operators have designed out what they're familiar with, and if they do it right, they make people feel like part of their family.
Yeah.
Because that was their experience growing up. And that's what I think is great about the differentiators in barbecue and in hospitality. We've got a lot of great barbecue in Nashville, and we've got a lot of great barbecue operators, and we're all pretty tight-knit group. We're all friends, and we all do it a little bit different.
Yeah.
And that's okay, and that's a good thing.
For sure.
If
you lost everything today,
yep.
If it all went away,
Yep.
what would be the first thing you'd do to restart?
Get to work. I just get to work.
What would you get to work on?
I don't know, man. I got a million ideas in my head. I'd figure out something. It can be fleeting, and I've been very fortunate that we've been very successful with this business. But I learned at a very young age. I had bone cancer when I was 17 years old, and it was the summer before my senior year. And something happens when you stare death in the face at age 17. You learn real quick what's really important in life and what's not. And don't get me wrong, I like to be successful, and I like to win, and I like to make money. But at the end of the day, I want to make sure my family's happy. I want to make sure they're healthy. I want to have a good friend group. And, I would just look at the ideas that I may already have and see if one of them's viable.
Yeah.
Or I may just have to go get to work for somebody and build my base back up and be able to pay my bills and then start something on the side.
Yeah.
It's one of my buddies said to me one time while I was looking for a job and I had kids and, I was trying to find the perfect job, and he looked at me and said, Carey, sometimes it's time to find your dream job, and sometimes it's time to just get a job.
Yeah.
It's very good advice.
I got a teenager in that world right now. He just needs a job.
Yeah.
That's all he needs.
Yeah, sometimes you just need to go get a job. And I've had my wife look at me.
Yeah.
After I've had a business fail and we were broke. And she looked at me and she said, it's time for you to go back and get a corporate job.
Yeah.
Until we're back on our feet again. And now the blessing about it, the woman that will support an entrepreneur is that once we built that base back up again and I had my next deal I wanted to do, she stood behind me 100%.
Yeah. I mean, that is, I feel like that's super important to have a spouse that is supportive of you living this life.
It's critical.
Yeah.
It is not easy for your
Right.
family, especially in the hospitality business. I had 3 young children. They were between the ages of 12 and 14. And, my wife looked at them and said, you want to see your daddy, we got to go down to the restaurant because that's where he's going to be.
That's where he's going to be.
And that's where I was.
You mentioned you have this dream, this goal of a $200 million company.
Yeah.
Do you think about legacy? Are you in a place? I mean, you're not crazy old, but are you thinking about?
No, yeah, I'm 55.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think about legacy, and I mean, we put it on a shirt. We're about to start selling a shirt that says it. We're building a legacy, not a chain.
I love it.
I don't have a desire to build out 100 peg leg porkers, and that's not a dig on anybody building a chain.
Sure,
a lot of people are very good at it. And they're very successful doing it. For me, our model was more of like the Rendezvous in Memphis. Mm-hmm. And, you get mixed feelings from people on the Rendezvous. Some are like, oh, it's a tourist trap or something like this. And, I look at the Rendezvous and I go, they've been in business for over 75 years. They are an iconic place. I'm friends with the Vergas family. They're good people. They built that business, and through fires and all of this and everything, I never hesitate to send somebody to the Rendezvous. And, somebody else may chime in and go, I don't like their ribs or this or that. And I said, you know what? Just set all that aside. You need to go to the Rendezvous for the experience. Yeah. And I love their ribs, and their sauce is one of my favorite of all times. But just the way that they do everything, it's just an iconic place. And I think of them as a legacy place. John Vergas is running it now. It was his daddy, Charlie, that started it. He and his brother used to run it, and his brother passed away. But we wanted to be the Rendezvous of Nashville. And so it was always our goal to say we've got one restaurant, but it's an iconic restaurant.
Yeah. We
want it to be here for 75 years. Now, it may be and it may not be. My kids may want to run it. They may want to cut and run. That'll be their decision. I can only make it a legacy for as long as I'm alive.
Yeah.
And I can't say if somebody came along with the right amount of money that I wouldn't bail out.
But when you are gone, when that day comes that you're gone, what do you hope people say about you? What do you hope people think about Carey Bringle?
Well, I hope that they think that, one, I'm a good person, and that I treated my people well, and that I treated my friends and family well. And, I think that we've achieved a lot of the goals that were on my bucket list, and some that I didn't even have on a bucket list because I never thought that I would, be able to do. And, I just... I hope people think, well, that was a good guy, and he helped a lot of people. And, he could be trusted, and he cared.
Yeah. What's next for Peg Leg? What's the next spoke you're working on?
Well, we are, we just finished the blending and bottling facility. So the next thing that'll happen is we'll open up the tasting room and bottle shop, and that'll happen in the next 60 days. And then after that, we will be going into retail with our sauces and rubs.
Oh man, okay.
Which we have avoided for years, and it's a very tough game. But we think we've got the right combination of partner and mindset, and I think that we will be out there and be very successful with it.
And when you think about that, like, is that when you say partner, like a distribution partners? Okay,
yeah.
Got you. Somebody who can help get that thing on shelves all across the country.
Yeah.
Wow, that's exciting. Another spoke.
Yeah. We already have the wholesale retail.
I know, but
we never have gone into outside retail.
Yeah.
Outside of us shipping it or at the restaurant.
Yeah.
And so this is a big leap and something that we didn't do purposely until we found the right combo to make it work. And I think that we have found that, and I think that it will be a very successful line for us.
And are you guys currently making that stuff in-house, or is it co-packed? Or
we make everything that we serve in the restaurant, we make in-house, and then what we sell online and on our shelves, we co-pack with our friends, The Shed, down in Ocean Springs, Mississippi.
Oh yeah, familiar with those guys.
Yeah,
Carey, it's always a pleasure.
Well, thank you, Chris.
You're never one to mince words or hold back.
Yeah.
I still think. You said last time you have no desire to run for office.
I got asked 3 times last week.
Is there any chance that change? I mean, it just seems like it would be a natural next step at some point for you. You still think negatively about the idea? There's some hope there. There's a glimmer.
When I was in Memphis, and I was about 22, 23.
Yeah.
I was asked to run for city council.
Yeah.
And I agreed. And I got on the ballot, and I was running against Janice Hooks, who was in personal bankruptcy, and she owed the election commission $20,000. But she was still the favorite. And you got to know Memphis politics. And I went out there, and, organizations started throwing me flyers and questionnaires that were worded so biased, and they were like, well, we got a group of volunteers for you, but answer this for me first. And I was like, these have nothing to do with city council, but their mentality is, if you do well here, you're going to go on to the next step. You're going to go on to the next step. You might be a mayor, governor, something like that. And it made me very uncomfortable, because I don't want to be beholden to any group, just like I don't want to be beholden to investors or partners right now. I don't want to be beholden to any particular, political interest, or lobbyist group or anything. I think that's a problem with our system right now. And
you don't think you could navigate the office though and avoid those relationships?
You
could do it your way. You could do it your way.
Life. I don't like to sit in meetings, and the thought of sitting in about 10 a day with people I don't care to sit with just drives me. It makes my skin crawl. I like right now to be behind the scenes, and I have a lot of friends in the political arena, and I'm certainly opinionated about what I think is going well or what's going wrong. But that's a tough business to be in, and right now it's not in the cards for me.
Yeah. So you're saying there's still a chance?
I got people,
at some point.
People ride me pretty hard. So.
Oh man. Well, I always appreciate the time. Yeah. I appreciate you coming to Franklin.
Thank you so much.
And I've enjoyed talking to you.
No, always a pleasure being with you, Chris.
Yes, sir.
And thank you.
Thank you. Carey Bringle, y'all. Loved having Carey on today. I'll tell you what, the dude is he's honest. He shoots straight. What you see is what you get. I said it before, man. He's just one of a kind. I appreciate being able to hang out with him a little bit. All right, summer is coming up, y'all, and if you're looking for a fun getaway in Southeast Tennessee, check out madesouth.com/cottages. We have a couple of tiny homes in a lakeside community there in kind of the Mont Eagle, Sewanee area. And I'll tell you what, dude, they are awesome. They're tucked in the woods, super quiet, close to some fun restaurants and local shops. I didn't realize it when we bought these things a couple of years ago. I didn't realize how many trails and waterfalls there are up in that neck of the woods. Just a really quiet place to get away, unplug, recharge. My wife and I, we've been going up there for overnight dates, and we just love it. She's been up there a few times on like girls' trips. I've even taken some buddies up for golf trips. You got Sweetens Cove, Bear Trace at Tim's Ford. The course at Sewanee is another really awesome track in that area. Listen, I mean, they're 90 minutes away from Nashville. Super close, so super easy to get to. They're affordable. If you're looking for like a quick, fun getaway, check out madesouth.com/cottages. All right, y'all. See you next time. Bye.